So.
Like it
Probably
makes
that's.
something. Yeah.
I agree.
And I know you're a baker. So, yeah, bakers. We survive on cupcakes and gummy bears.
We eat so little, eat sugar.
Little large cases, yeah.
You look like you. were
I am looking a little bit.
living. It's good. Okay, no.
Nice to meet you again.
Hi, is that right?
House.
Calla.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, okay, yeah, so we have introductions, which is all good. I want to do a census. So when Dana does a training, it's usually to get it done right, really well, it's about an hour and a half. How many people could stay till 6:30?
I can.
Yes.
If you want. We'll try to get.
Yeah,
That's what I have on my schedule.
is it 6:30?
5 to 6:30.
Oh, okay, because it really.
Careful, those gummies will make it seem long.
I swear to God, these are just Haribo. I'm done.
So with that, do I need to do anything? Okay, I
If
say,
you guys, if you could all sound off just for
Okay.
1:30 that you guys all attended, that would be
okay.
great.
All right, do you want to just have a seat? Sheree, you want to start?
My name,
Yeah, just say.
Sheree Fisher.
Walter, check.
Paige Smith.
Lucy Hunter.
Emily Foster.
Hannah Rose Ostrander.
Okay, so you got on the record who's here,
Thank you.
and everybody met Dana? Okay.
Dana LeBac. Dana from Dola. When you see the name, it's Czech. So it's not really pronounced like we say it. It's Slavic. But it's just LeBac, so just think, got your back, LeBac.
Back.
Got your back, LeBac.
And I'll just interject, there are cookies and cupcakes, and if anybody's gluten free, they're the two lighter papers.
Cupcakes, ladies.
You know, for
Thank you
after
for
we
the
eat.
offer. Oh, we
I
made
ate them
sure.
out like
Okay. Now I'm turning it back to you, Dana.
So I'll do a little introduction on myself, now that I have a whole extra half hour. Whole thing introducing myself. I'm Dana LeBac. I was raised in New York, went to Syracuse University, went through an ROTC scholarship, straight into the Army. I was a combat engineer and paratrooper, got out, went to law school, worked as an assistant or deputy district attorney in Colorado Springs, went and started my own firm. Went to be the assistant district attorney down in Trinidad for 2 years, ran for elected office, lost in a primary, ended up in Arizona as the chief public defender in the 5th largest geographic county in the country. Did some great things there, got promoted to deputy county manager. Did that, the position was eliminated by a new set of incoming board members, which may sound familiar sometimes. And from there, I went to be the finance director for a county down in Arizona. From there, a city manager in Oregon. From there, a budget manager for a city in Arizona. From there, the court administrator for the city of Las Vegas, Nevada. From there, the development services administrator for the city of Las Vegas, Nevada. From there to here. Now, the standard reaction is, couldn't you hold a job? I'm old. I think the only person, I don't even think Paige has any people. I think Walter might have.
You beat. I'm 71.
Okay, a few years, I'll be 57.
See?
So it's been an adventure, and the bottom line is it works really well for this job. As the Dola Northwest Regional Manager, I cover from Wyoming all the way down to Lake City and from Utah over to Glenwood Springs.
Wow.
Our Southwest Regional Manager is now leaving us to become the Deputy Town Manager in Telluride. So I'll pick up an additional 5 counties, almost all the way to Mexico. So very exciting times. Hopefully the governor doesn't do another hiring freeze. We'll be able to fill that position. There's 8 of us regional managers. We cover the whole state, so roughly 8 counties apiece. We work with counties, municipalities, cities, special districts. I have 104 special districts just in my region. That our guy who covers Denver has 1,100 special districts. So it's
Special district is?
a special district is a special type of governmental entity formed for a special purpose. So for instance, a water district,
Oh, thank
a
you.
sanitation district, a fire district, a library district, ambulance district, hospital district, there's a lot of different kinds. And so what DOLA does, statutorily, we are supposed to help local government. And we're to serve as kind of the liaison between the governor's office and local government. Lately, it may feel that we are lately, it may feel to some people at the local level, that we're more here to get you to do what the governor wants you to do. That's none of our regional managers are here to do that. We're not governors, go do it, people. We're here to help you. If what you want to do happens to align with the governor wants us to tell you to do, great, we can probably help out with some money and things like that. But we're never going to tell you what to do or force anything down upon you. And I think that's the important thing. We're not here to tell you what to do. I'm never going to come in and say, you need to do this. Now, if someone calls and says, is this legal? Is it statutorily allowed? Okay, I'll give you that advice, but never, if you choose one thing for your town over something else, it's your choice, it's your town. So all I'm here for is to bring all the experience from all that long list of jobs I had to bear and give you that expertise. And what you do with it is really up to you. The Department of Local Affairs is bigger than that. We have Division of Housing, State Demographer's Office. There's a tax thing in there. I forget what it's called. The Department, Division of Property Taxation. They hear tax appeals. Instead of you sending them to court, they go up there. But we're the Division of Local Government, and we're really the ones that are here to help serve. In the past, we've been very fortunate to give out about $150 million a year in grants. And those grants are generally for public infrastructure. We've given Paonia about $3.5 million over the last 5 years, primarily for water infrastructure. I think almost all for, there's been some planning grants and other type of stuff, but a lot of it for replacing your pipes,
And the sewer.
the sewer, relining the water tank, things like that. Unfortunately, this like recorded.
In my street.
White light means yes.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
So, as you know, the state isn't necessarily in good financial terms for whatever reason you may think that occurred. And they found that a good place to get money was from what's called the severance tax. So they kind of wiped that out for the last 2 years and going on into the foreseeable future. The severance tax is a tax that basically, if something is severed from the ground, a mineral or ore, it's taxed. So oil, gas, gold, copper, molybdenum, all that stuff is taxed. Goes into a tax base, big complicated formulas to how that gets split up. Some of it goes to the Department of Natural Resources, big chunk of it comes to us. 30% of what comes to us automatically goes back to jurisdictions on what's called the direct distribution formula. I don't know what Paonia used to get. But a typical jurisdiction that maybe used to get $300,000 a year is now getting about $5,000 a year.
Oh.
So it's a big hit. The other 70% was the competitive grants. This last cycle, we had $36 million of requests for $12 million of money. So a lot of good things did not get funded. So that's the Department of Local Affairs. In addition to providing funding when it's available, we do things like this board training. We teach good governance. We teach how to get along with each other with ethics, legal, moral, all the things that SURSA overlaps with as well. We will help come in and do capital planning, asset inventories, budget training, pretty much anything that deals with government. We're here to help a local government do right and do it the way they want to do well. Do it the best they can. So that's part of what this is. So this session, I've changed the title a little bit. It used to just be board training. That's kind of important. So I call it governing with integrity. I think we can all probably agree that government in general has lost its sense of integrity with the general population. My focus is on restoring that integrity, and it begins at the local level. So kudos to all of you for being a part of that. Try to make sure. do this right. So here's the thing, welcome to everybody who's new, which is at least the four of you as far as I know. I think I've had this training or some form of it with Walter before. But you guys are in an interesting period of transition. You'll have to deal with a change in management, you're a fairly new board. That's a lot to take on. I doubt that a year from now, you're gonna look back and say, this job was exactly what I expected. Because it's probably not, I think, Paige can give us a good example of that. So it's a fresh start and it's commitment to good governance. I will tell you that when I came here for the first time about 5 years ago. Walter, you on the board then? Okay, good, nobody was on board.
I was on the board starting in December of 22.
Yeah, that was before that.
Okay,
I came in.
and I'm not counts, sorry.
The meetings were god awful. The town administrator would get in arguments with the public and get in arguments with the board members, and the board members would fight with each other. I remember somebody complaining, a member of the public complaining about that something was going to surplus sale. And they were like, why? That's still a good piece of equipment. And they wanted to get all this nitty gritty stuff, and it was an argument. And the board meetings lasted ever. And there's absolutely no reason that should happen. If it does, what happens is you don't get people to volunteer. It's like, I don't want to sit around for 6 hours on a Tuesday night or whatever night you have to meet. At the time, Mary was mayor. We worked with her. We've worked with Paige since. And when I say, man, your meetings are awesome. And it was really nothing more than implementing back a certain level of formality. When you get too informal and too cordial, it's that old adage, familiarity breeds contempt. But by maintaining that, we really seem to have gotten a good hold on it. So as a board member, this is a question, are you intent on leading? You know, a lot of people have a issue that they ran on. And those people are generally the least successful as board members. Because the issue is going to come, it's going to go, then what do they do on the board? If that's all they were focused on, there's nothing really left for them. So it's important that you think about the fact that you're leading. This quote at the bottom, the quote I wrote, it's not a quote. But you're a leader. And whether you like it or not, people in town now look at you. It's your responsibility to keep the town, make the town what they want it to be. Now, that doesn't mean they as individuals. It means they as the collective consensus. So, okay. So these are kind of the objectives today. Understand the role as a board member, learn the boundaries between elected officials and staff. Some of them are just norms and behaviors. Others are very specific. Embrace civility, how to really deal with sometimes very difficult interactions in a civil manner. And understand legislative versus quasi-judicial actions and roles. Other than Walter and Paige, everybody understand quasi-judicial versus legislative roles?
No.
I can stretch it up to an hour and a half now.
It's not split anything.
I get it done as quick as you can. Your role as a board member, you're really kind of board of directors of a corporation. You set the policy, you set the direction, you approve the budgets.
Dana, I'm sorry, can I interrupt to ask, can you make this available to us? So
Yes.
I'm taking notes on things that aren't.
They've got a copy of it, so you can download the whole copy. It's oversight, not management. Is the city going in the right direction? Not is a pothole being filled or, are we using the right material on this project or that project? And ultimately, you're representing your constituents. You guys are all at large. So it's difficult to say exactly who your constituents are. Obviously, there are people that voted for you. But sometimes, and there's a quote later on in this, that a good decision isn't always the right decision. And it's not always the popular decision. Sometimes you look at the big picture of where you want the town to go, and the steps that you need to take to get there, somebody may not agree with. I just, before this, was up in Cedar Ridge. And we provided Cedar Ridge with about $1 million for a bridge. It's called the Deer Trail Bridge. Huge segment of the population say, why are we spending? Because they have to spend almost the same. So why are we spending all this money on this bridge that only serves this small section of town? Well, they only have 3 bridges that cross Service Creek from west to east. 2 carry 2-lane traffic. This one, you could see through the deck to the river. The water pipe was on the upstream side of the bridge. So every time there was a high water flow, debris would hit it. It had been repaired numerous times. It was only 1 lane with heavy traffic. School buses could not drive over it, even though it was a path to school. Problems. When they built that bridge, they were really looking at the fact that that whole east side of town is open and ripe for development. It's not going to be there now. They don't want to develop it now. But when somebody wants to come and develop it, it's too late if there's not a bridge already there. So it was a positive step that the town board of trustees took. That wasn't super popular with the population. A lot of people understood it, but it was a matter of debate. You're going to meet those issues where you've had some of those issues, cameras in the park. Shouldn't mention those, but you know, you've got to protect your assets. It's a question of how you do it, and you're going to make a decision. Right or wrong, it's your decision, and you guys live. So I always say your overriding responsibility is to build trust. A lot of other people say, you know, you're the CEOs, you're the board of directors, and if everything you do, my fault. If everything you do, you view with an eye on, does this build trust or detract from trust? If you always make the decision that you feel builds trust, you will always make the right decision. Guaranteed. So keep that as your ultimate filter, I suggest. So what isn't the role? The role isn't micromanaging staff. Like I said, you know, your town manager manages the staff, your public works director manages your public works, chief of police manages the police. You guys don't do it. That's just not their role. You don't make operational decisions. You don't necessarily decide who works what shifts, what contractor you get or don't get based on bids, depending on your procurement codes. You just don't do this. You don't act as an individual authority. The only way this board acts is as a majority. No one person can direct any staff member to do something. No 2 board members can direct a staff member to do anything. So if you want something done by staff, it has to come as the voice of the board. Okay. Running day-to-day functions, again, that's kind of a micromanaging thing. The interesting thing you actually have in your municipal code, that all these executive administrators' powers shall be exercised by the town administrator. So I understand we're in this little quagmire, and how you deal with that tomorrow is really doing kind of your thing. Well, I went to Rio. Bravo, that's a great street taco. So it's there, and you can read your. How many of you actually read your entire municipal code, start to finish?
But yet,
Probably at this point.
It's
Not one sitting, I can tell you that.
Oh, it's so tough to get through. It's like, you know, you can be the most pious person on earth. Good luck. Sit down. Here's the Bible. Read it tonight.
That's.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You just can't get it done, you know? But the fact is, a lot of stuff we're going to talk about are really, there's codified stuff in your municipal code, and there's statutory stuff in the state statutes. And it's really important to know that. You've got a city attorney, town attorney. But every time you call him up, you know, he's just hitting the stopwatch and starting to run the clock. So best if you know those, if at all possible. And while I have the moment, I'll put a plug in. CML, how many of you have joined CML? Everybody know what CML is?
Right on this one.
Okay, all right.
I've not joined yet.
And one thing I'll say, you don't know something, don't be embarrassed to say you don't know it. I could care less. I just want to make sure everybody gets to know what you know. So who's going to the CML conference in Westminster later in June?
Sam's going. I might go, I don't know.
When we talk about authorities, statutory codified, CML is a phenomenal resource. Their staff's available to you. There are listservs. You can get on the listserv and just send something out to other trustees and say, hey, I got a question about this. What does this mean? And you get 100 answers and sort through them. If you still don't know, then maybe call the town attorney or ask your mayor to do that. I strongly recommend you attend CML. Your board should be represented at CML. It's a voting board. It votes on policies. It votes on legislature. Are we going to support this legislation, not support this legislation? And it's important for them to hear from small rural towns. So if you have the opportunity, please go to CML.
I went 2 years ago and it was really good. It was really lovely.
The registration is still open.
I think it's still tomorrow.
And it's in Westminster. There are so many hotels in Westminster. Okay, so appointed staff, they're basically trust for everything else. They are your experts. They are your policy advisors. They can advise you. This is based on all the facts we have, and here are the facts. We recommend the board do X. You do not have to listen to them. It's really your choice. You may have an opinion totally different. Well, we don't want to do X, we want to do Y. That's okay. That's your responsibility as a board to sort through all those facts. And again, they serve the board as a whole. I would hope, in fact, I know that at least under the current, I hate to use the word regime, but under the current leadership, the policy would be if a board member asks staff a question, the answer goes back to all board members, correct? So you all share the same information. No board member should or no board member should have information from staff that another board member does not have. It's, you all play on an equal field. You play with the same data and you get to make your decisions based on what you want to do. So the chain of command is pretty simple. The board goes to the appointed executive, your town manager runs all departments. You have one voice. There's no individual directives, and you have to avoid undermining staff at all times. One of the most dangerous things, I like to throw jurisdictions, but I used to throw Paley under the bus all the time. How terrible it was. So be glad you're not there anymore. But Cedar Ridge has this problem where a trustee will call out staff during a board meeting and say, well, why did you do this? That was stupid. And it just undermines, when you go back to that, does it build trust or doesn't it build trust? When you do that and call out staff in a public forum like that, it undermines the trust of anybody listening online, sitting in the audience, even among your fellow trustees. If you have an issue with what a staff member does, take it to the executive, whoever's serving as your executive or your manager. It's their responsibility to deal with it. That's their responsibility to get you and the board in total answers to any questions you may have. So please be careful. A standard when you're driving down the street and you're just talking to a staff member, they're filling in a pothole with some hot tar. You're like, oh, that's great. When are you gonna get to 6th Street? And what do they think?
You're telling them what to do.
They think, ooh, I better get over to 6th Street. Well, that may be a really low priority because there's something else they're supposed to be doing. It's what their boss told them to do. So be really careful when you're talking with staff. Anything that they can interpret as a directive or a request from you, they're going to interpret as a request or a directive from you. They all know, in theory, they work for the town manager. But they all know that you guys have the power to hire and fire town managers, so they want to keep you guys happy. So please don't undermine that. So let's talk about the type of actions. Legislative. What does Congress do? Nothing, but let's pretend they do what they're supposed to be doing. What are they supposed to be doing?
Write laws, control the money.
Write laws, all the money, bunch of stuff. What about when they hold a congressional hearing?
Sound effects are awesome.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
Well, then it
Why would they hold a congressional hearing?
It's an investigation.
It's an investigation. Did they do anything with those?
No.
No,
No, they don't.
they don't.
So what's the point?
They just have a hearing to make people
Put it on the record.
look good or look bad and
Make it look like they're actually doing something. No, listening, reacting.
It,
not for me to necessarily.
it builds the record. And
And
therefore, it does help in other people file lawsuits. For
I
us.
don't know.
This is a near and dear topic to my heart, so.
I'm glad it is.
Yeah.
And in a sense, they're trying to find out information which guides their legislative process. If they think the rules are such that the rules ought to be changed, they can use that information to change a law, change legislation. Now, what they're not doing is finding anybody guilty or responsible or giving somebody more rights or less rights. So as long as you are doing the same kind of thing, you're serving in the legislative mode. So if you're enacting an ordinance, you're creating a policy, you're just trying to figure out how to.
I wish it was that easy.
Like Linda the Good Witch, right? Which on the side. You decide you're gonna set a curfew, you decide you're gonna impose drought water rates. We'll start with those yet?
Not water rates, but we have a conservation in place.
Sounds so that there.
See what I told you, was it?
Yeah, busy I am. Right, for dinner. So as long as you're doing that kind of stuff, you're just legislating. In a legislative environment, you can talk to who you want, gain information from wherever you want. When you discuss it as a board, you should share that information. So if you happen to talk to somebody at the grocery store and they said, oh, did you know this? When you come back to the meeting, you're discussing that particular legislation, you should say, hey, I heard from so-and-so at the grocery store, X, Y, and Z. You say you believe it, you don't believe it, whatever, but everybody gets the same information and they get to put that into their filter for decision.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
If someone says something to me at the grocery store, am I allowed to tell other trustees if I see them, or does it only have to be at the meeting?
That's very good.
We're gonna get back to that.
Yeah, that's like, we're not discussing, like, if it's not discussing something, but it's a piece of information that's relevant to something we may be discussing, like. That, I feel like.
I'll give you the quick answer. The safe path is to take that information, send it to the town manager, let the town manager distribute. And you are not getting into what can be called a serial meeting, where you share information with somebody, they share information with somebody else shares information, and they say, wait a minute, that's really a meeting. Just because you weren't all in the same room, the same place, you were sharing and discussing information that the public should know about.
That question of sharing versus discussing is one I want to dig into later.
Okay, I've got questions, I got a half-hour program for this. So questions on the legislative kind of stuff. Okay, quasi judicial, on the other hand, is when somebody comes to you for a determination of their rights. So liquor license, building permits, zoning changes, that impacts somebody's rights. You have a process for every one of those items, those agenda items. It's very important. Anybody ever watch LA Law or some stupid law show? Ah, good for you. Like I said, I'm a lawyer, so,
We won't hold that again.
oh, I forgot, I'm also the presiding judge for Quebec. Do that in my script now.
You're great, Judge.
No, it's like Hershey.
Quebec.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
It's on the other side of the Quebec Canyon.
Mhm.
If you think about the trial is presided over by a judge. You collectively are the judge. You serve as one brain, which is determined by a majority vote. That judge, when he's hearing a case, is presented evidence. And he or she listens to that evidence and based on that evidence makes a finding of fact. If that finding of fact meets the elements of whatever is being sued for or whatever crime is being alleged, they make a finding. It does or does not fit. And there's liability, no liability, guilt or no guilt. That's essentially what you're doing when you're issuing a liquor license. Somebody applies, the town marshal or the chief of police or the sheriff may come in and say, here's their record, here's the reason why I shouldn't give them a license. The applicant may come up and say, no, that's not true, this happened, that happened. You have to make a determination of what the facts are. And then if the facts fit your process. Now, when I say fit your process, it's fairly easy with a liquor license. Gets a lot more difficult when you talk about a building or a zoning issue with the planning commission. The important thing, and I think we're gonna get to this again later, so I'll wait on it. Questions on kind of what quasi judicial is? Clear as mud? Go ahead.
I think so. No, I think it was a good explanation. If it's like a right of, yeah, that's a way, I don't know, I understand it better.
Yeah, you're impacting somebody positively or negatively financially through your decision. You're giving them a right or taking away a right.
And isn't it usually done under the auspices of a hearing?
It's a hearing.
Oh, it'll always be a hearing.
It'll be a public hearing. The
Yeah.
mayor's adjourn everything else and then convene a public hearing. You'll go into it, however long that is, and then you'll make a finding, an order, and then you'll recess that hearing and come back to regular session.
And then, excuse me, in a quasi judicial setting, we're not information gathering, we're only considering what's presented during the hearing.
Yeah, there's so much more to that. We're gonna come to the details of it. But yeah, excellent question. I think it comes up pretty quick. Public meetings, you can do all these things. You can seek input. You can go out to the public. You can canvass your neighborhood, say, what do you think? It's all good. Just share it with your folks. You want public participation. You want big picture, the timeline, all this stuff is there. The one thing I would say, and this, it's great that there's this little cat thing that you can tease cats with, but it doesn't work on the screen. Limit the jargon and the acronyms. How many of you sat through one of these meetings where a staff member has got up and thrown out some acronym and you're like, I wonder what that means. Right? It's common. CDPHE, how many of you know what CDPHE is? Health and environment, right? CDOT, we all know. DNR, CPW. There's just so many acronyms. And that's PFAS.
Oh, so it's the little chemicals that are forever chemical.
HDPHE.
Yeah, they're not, all the air divisions under the CDPH.
Yeah, see, but it's a good example. High density polyethylene, whatever. Particularly with public works. Oh, they love, and police, public works and police love their acronyms. Do not let them get away with using acronyms. Even if you understand. Be the person who's, I'm sorry, can you explain that? Because odds are somebody else on the board doesn't, and is just afraid to say they don't know. Don't let them get away with the use of acronyms or technical language you don't understand. Help keep things relevant. You know, how many, dangerous question, anyway. How many times you had a member of the public come up to talk on an item, the discussion like takes off out in left field, it's heading to Crawford, and you're not even close to going there. You gotta keep things on track, keep them focused, so everybody knows what you're talking
Well,
about.
we have a 3-minute limit. So when that
Man, I
does-
can go way off track in 3 minutes, but yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm not gonna tell somebody
Yeah.
that's at the podium. I'm not gonna tell them what to say.
Now, is that just on your open public comment, or do you have comment on agenda item?
We have comment on every agenda item and we have an open 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting where someone can speak on something not on the agenda.
So here's the stuff which general comment, but who cares what they say? On the agenda item, if they go too far off track, you're no longer on the agenda item.
Yeah, I might say something, but
Okay.
I'm gonna be pretty judicious about when I'm
Okay.
gonna tell somebody that they're off topic.
All right,
I mean, because it's only 3 minutes.
nice thing, the mayor runs the meeting, so
Yeah, I know.
you guys can just say, well, I know you do.
Well, some people have said point of order, you know, when somebody has said something and then it might happen, but I tend to be pretty civil and just, you know, anyway, I'm more, when it's the 3 minutes and they can talk on anything not on the agenda, but they're talking on something on the agenda, I say that's on the agenda, please hold that till you come back, which is not always well received, but anyway, that's
Okay.
anyway.
And
It's
that's,
touch-
it gets to remain courteous, no
Right.
matter what. And that, in the past, way back 5+ years ago, was not the case. People would yell and scream at each other, it was kind of. So when you're in quasi judicial, it's a whole nother hat. Think about it, if the judge, if I go out, I'm not wearing my robe, I can go out, talk to people, I'm just a human being. No big deal. The second I put on that robe, it's a totally different scenario. There are things that I'm obligated to do and obligated not to do. These are those things. First, the rules have to be in advance. So whenever you have a public hearing, you probably have them posted. If not posted up here, then they're posted on the agenda. And you got to follow the rules. The applicant has to follow the rules. The board has to follow the rules. You have not just the rules during the hearing, but in your process and your application process, you have rules. Somebody has to meet certain qualifications, building, they have to have certain setbacks, certain square footage, whatever it is. They have to follow those and everything has to fit. You have to remain unbiased while you're hearing the evidence. You don't get to be Judge Judy and yell at people and say, what do you think? I'm smarter than you. No. You have to remain totally unbiased. So you gotta be really careful because sometimes it's not unheard of or uncommon to see trustees rolling their eyes, shrugging their heads and just like, you can't do it.
What about
Right.
in situations where it's very close to impossible to remain unbiased if it's with respect to a member of the board?
You're talking during the hearing.
During a hearing.
During
Yeah.
a hearing.
During a hearing. It shouldn't be about another member of the board. The other member of the board has nothing to do with what you're hearing.
I mean, okay, so let me tell you exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
We had a public hearing where a member of the board was removed from the board.
Well, I remember that.
Yeah, so how can we remain unbiased when clearly in that instance, I mean, how can we be?
Yeah, I don't. My personal
Yeah, but
perspective.
I mean, I want to know.
My personal perspective, and I was here for that hearing, is that the board members did not necessarily exhibit personal animosity or bias as much as they exhibited a need to protect the town. And they went by certain standards of what a board member was expected to do and simply believed that that board member did not follow those standards and should be removed. That's not bias. You ruling against somebody is not biased. What bias is your basis for doing that. If all the evidence said he was doing the same thing every other board member did, and you just said, yeah, but I don't like him. He sits next to me and he smells, he kicks his toenails, and no, that's bias. Okay, so,
Clarification.
okay. Show you're listening. You know, I always say, and kudos to you, I didn't do it because my cell phones are there. Cell phone, no cell phone, no cell phone. Oh,
My back stimulator remote.
oh, I thought that was a flip phone. I'm like, cool. I personally recommend You don't even keep your cell phones on the desk. Just put them away. If you've got an emergency going, you've got a child that's in the hospital or a parent or something, fine. Just explain it at the beginning of the meeting, honestly, and just say, I apologize if it happens with this situation. I'll take care of something. The worst that can happen is somebody comes up, starts talking to you, and you start, texting on your phone. It's disrespectful. It kind of slaps them in the face saying, I don't really care about what you have to say. And that's tough, but we can all get away for a few hours. The importance of the strong care. It's important to make sure you keep things going. And the second part of that is a supporting board. So, if you, during a meeting or at any point have a problem with the way the board, what Paige is doing in terms of running a meeting, don't address it in the meeting. Don't address it in the meeting. The board should not bicker, should not complain about each other during a meeting. You pull them aside afterwards and say, hey, I really thought that person was going way off the agenda. If you let the next person go like that, I'm gonna have to call for a point of order, whatever your thing is. But do that in private. Don't let the board get contentious as it's sitting at the board. Stay on task, avoid tangents. It's very easy for a board to suddenly somebody raises something, you're talking about a liquor license and it comes up that, well, the property next door is gonna apply for a marijuana license. Oh, we don't want a marijuana license. There's too many marijuana. Well, that has nothing to do with this, but just stay on. This is the big one, input only during a noticed public hearing. So this gets into ex parte communications. So as a judge, think about it. Have you ever heard of a judge going out and investigating a crime scene on his own? No, it doesn't happen. Does a judge go out and talk to a witness without the attorneys or the jury there? No. No, it doesn't happen. All the evidence has to be gathered in the public forum. If you gather evidence outside of that public forum, and I use it generally, and we'll dig into some details, you must disclose that evidence to the rest of the board. You can't sit there secretly holding on to a piece of evidence that you're going to base your decision on without sharing it with the board. Now, that can get complicated. If somebody talks to you in the grocery store about their pending liquor license, that's just a no-no. It should not happen. You should immediately tell them, you know what, we're gonna have a hearing on that. If you need to do something else on the record, contact the town. Same thing on planning and zoning. Anything that's coming before the board in terms of a hearing, you send them to the town manager or the planning commission or somebody else. You don't talk to them. Now that can get difficult. You have somebody, there's rumors. Oh, somebody's gonna buy that lot and they want to subdivide it and put 2 duplexes on it. Just a rumor, but somebody comes up to you and wants to talk about it in the grocery store. Can you?
It's just a rumor at
Just a rumor.
point, a hearsay, speculation, so
Yeah.
that would be okay, I would think.
Okay, let's explore it further. They want to just talk to you about it and say, oh, I heard this is happening. What would be an okay way for you to interact with that person?
I would personally say something to the effect of, thank you for bringing this to my attention, but I feel we need to address the whole board, that they need to know this. So can you talk to Sam or town clerk?
Okay, totally safe, great. Same thing, you're in the supermarket, person comes up to you and says, I heard this rumor, they're gonna be doing this on this lot. Do you think that would be okay? What's an okay response?
That will be discussed in the public hearing. Next day,
No, there's no public hearing, it's just a rumor.
well, we'll have to discuss that in public hearing.
But anything wrong with saying, man, I would hate to see that happen? Smirking.
I would just be like, cool, okay. Have a good day, like, I don't know.
So here's, even with that response, here's the problem. If somebody's telling you something and it's expected to elicit a positive or negative response from you, that can be interpreted as a sign of predetermination of fact and bias towards or in favor, against or in favor of the project. So if that person comes up to you and says, hey, I hear they're gonna do this and make duplexes, what do you think? Oh, man, I'd hate to see that happen. When an applicant comes in and the whole, small town thing, and makes its way around and, oh, well, Lucy told me in the grocery store, she'd already hate to see that happen. They're gonna challenge you saying you're already biased.
You recuse.
And you may have to recuse yourself and you bring the board down to the 6, and now what happens with the vote? So my advice is you are always safe. Very neutral. Oh, I didn't know that. You should talk to the town administrator. You should talk to the planning commission. Deflect, get it out of your way.
Well, you don't want to talk to the planning commission either,
Well,
because then you enter the bias.
That's true.
It-
Tell me.
It's really the town manager who is on our planning commission, but we now have a person on staff who does the building, the planning stuff.
That's the
So
town
talk
manager.
to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That ex parte thing is tough.
That is
It can be
tricky.
tough. It can be tough. Just remember, if what you say or how you act in response to something could reasonably be interpreted as you being in favor or against something, it's gonna cause a problem.
And what's scary about that is I may have no idea there's a lot.
Yep.
I don't even know it's not something that's even come before the planning commission. It's just out of the blue. So this is really good to remember to just go, okay, thank you. That, if you have concerns, go talk, but don't talk to
And
me.
it may even be more general.
Right.
What do you think about, all the development that's going on in town? I think we're big enough. Problems. Oh, I hate to see it happen. Problems. No, we'll deal with it as it comes. All right, and ultimately the question is, does the application meet the standards? And I don't know all the standards for all your different applications, but on a liquor license, are they of age? Do they have an appropriate criminal background? Do they have a bond? Whatever those are. Those are the only factors. And if you check those boxes and they meet it, it doesn't matter what your personal feelings are, you approve it. It doesn't matter. You can hate it. Do you have any psychedelic therapy treatment places in town yet? They're coming. So, that's a perfect example. Somebody starts talking about, hey, what do you think of psilocybin and ketamine and all that? And you're like, oh my God, a bunch of dopers in town. Don't be very, very careful. The next is make very careful motions, and we'll talk about that a little bit more again. So what makes it effective? Everybody feels like they have an opportunity to participate. If they wanted to participate, they got to participate. They feel they were heard. They didn't see you doing phone stuff or paying attention to other stuff. How many of you bring laptops to the meetings? How many of you have your agendas on the laptops? What are you going to do during the meeting? You're going to look at your agenda, right? You may be looking at the backup. Just be careful that you're not so buried in there that you don't give somebody attention. At least look up every once in a while, make sure they're paying attention to you. I have a term called crutch. And a crutch is something that you can just go back to when you got caught in a bad situation to kind of explain the situation. You can always come up out of that and say, I'm sorry, I was just looking at this application and I have this question that they'll forgive you for looking at your computer.
Well, we don't have paper copies.
Yeah.
Of an entire hearing, a planning commission, it is on hearing.
Yeah.
So.
The relevant issues on the standards were addressed, make sure all the standards were addressed. If there's 6 standards and the applicant only gets up and talks about 5, and staff only talks about 5, and there's a standard that hasn't been addressed, don't just sit there thinking, I can deny it because they didn't address the 6th standard. Ask the question. Make sure it's addressed. No long tangents, we talked about that. I personally think a great thing to start with is always the staff report. because that kind of lays it out and gives the applicant something to talk directly to. You gotta make sure the board's decision is very clear when you talk about those things. Stick to those 6 standards. They met standard 1, they met standard 2, they met standard 3. I have an issue with standard 4 because X, Y, and Z. Be very, very clear. These are the things you get sued over. You get sued over quasi judicial processes. So make them very, very clear and very defensible. Improving the right, wow, that format didn't come out right. Have the right tone, make sure everybody knows the procedures ahead of time, repeat them if you need to, that would be Paige's job. One of the difficult things is somebody came up and they were really nasty. Thank them for their time. You don't have to thank them for what they said, but thank them for their time. No, that's important. Watch your nonverbal cues as well as watching nonverbal cues from the audience. If your verbal cues are like this, it's probably because you don't want to listen to what the person's saying. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But your verbal cues will give off vibes to the speakers and kind of make them feel like they are being listened to or they're being discounted. At the same time, as the board is having discussions, you do a pretty good job now of keeping the audience under control, so to say. But watch their body language. If you start seeing people getting tense and a lot of this whispering going on, be aware of it. Maybe it's time to take a recess or do something else to keep the room kind of calm. Acknowledge that planning decisions are political. Small p, political. People will say, this is why I need it, this is why I get it. They'll lobby, they'll do everything they can to try to get the things they need. But the decision at the end of the day is purely objective. It's purely based on evidence. And show very, very patience. So these are the problems in decision making. Not being prepared. Did you get your packets 7 days in advance?
No, actually, almost Friday. Oh,
Hey, I finished too.
Okay.
Friday before Tuesday meeting.
Oh, so you get to read them all weekend during football season and when the summer is beautiful and you'd rather be hiking and horseback. I would board it. It's tough. What's your longest board packet?
673 pages.
I know they're a lot longer than they used to be. Which is, believe it or not, a good thing. It is a good thing.
We're taking care of some of that, but when we have 10 proposals.
Yeah.
For one project, it all has to go in. And.
All public record.
Yeah.
All there. Another, you guys would never do this. You would never poll the audience for their opinion on a decision. Right? Okay, don't have to worry about volunteer that. No volunteer, but
Yeah.
forget it. Again, don't show bias before a decision is made, whether it's in the grocery store, whether it's the face and the nonverbal cues you're giving. It's pretty easy for somebody to pick up that you've already made a decision.
Sorry, quasi judicial.
Quasi judicial. Quasi judicial. And don't attempt to be the architect. Don't redo a planning application while the person's there. Oh, can't you do this? Can't you do that? Can you do it 30 feet instead of 40 feet? Don't, that's their job to do. You just stick to the facts. So the thing that you gotta, to be able to defend it, you gotta have notice. I'm pretty sure Sam did a great job on noticing things. People have to have an opportunity to be heard, clear rules, follow the process for everybody. One of the common things that I see in some boards, I think we've dealt with this before, not that you did it, but we've talked about it. What do you do when an applicant says, well, I need an extra 10 minutes? Or an opponent says, I need 5 minutes instead of 3.
We give 5 at hearings.
Okay, so you need 8 instead of 5. The problem with saying, okay, if another opponent or a proponent says, well, I need 8, you got to give it to them because you can't treat them differently. So adherence to the rules in a very strict environment is very important. One of the things that I've seen boards do is allow people to aggregate their time to one speaker. So 5 people will come up and say, I donate my 3 minutes to so-and-so, my 3 minutes to so-and-so, my 3 minutes to so-and-so. Is that a good idea? Do you do it?
No, it was asked of us.
Pam will kill you, because then she's got to track whose time was what, make sure everybody, oh.
It's come up at a regular meeting and anyway, yeah,
Wait, so we're not allowed to do that?
no, we shouldn't.
You should not, I don't know what your rules are, I don't know
We have a 3-minute rule per person
per person,
and that's.
no aggregation.
Yeah.
With parliamentary procedure, there's a way to do it, but it's also formalized because it does complicate things a lot.
So, yeah, we should figure out what we tell the public next time. That
Well,
comes
I
up.
kind of like your 3 minutes are up.
Yeah.
And that what happened is somebody came up and then her 3 minutes was up and she handed the computer to the next person who finished it. And I just let it go. Because, you know, you kind of have to read the room too, but anyway.
What you don't want is 50 people who come in and for their 3 minutes, they say the exact same thing for every 3 minutes.
And in a hearing, we do avoid that, but you know, in regular public comment. It's pretty hard to tell them what they can and can't say. In public comment, they've got a right to free speech. So I tread pretty lightly when people come up to speak. Because it's their right.
Easier to not be sued than to be sued.
Well, I think it goes back to the build trust thing too.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
if people feel like you're trying to cut them off and watch them, that doesn't build trust.
Right. And it look, appears to have a, you know, there appears to be a bias.
Findings of fact, we talked about that and make it very clear. Make timely decisions, please. Don't just keep kicking the can down the road on a tough decision. It's gonna be just as tough the next meeting it is as at this present meeting, so just make your decision, make sure the records are complete. So motions take some effort. Do you now include, Sam, do you include prepared draft motions?
We try to on staff reports, like this is when you could use, and
And in hearings too.
in hearings, there's actually multiple prepared motions that, to approve, to deny, to condition or whatever, so that they make it easier. So we're attempting to make that happen.
So it's pre-prepared draft motions, they're not final, make it a whole lot easier. But that doesn't just make it easier for the quasi judicial in the hearings. If you've got a legislative matter, it's good if even if Sam doesn't have, or you can give it to Sam beforehand or whatever the process is, to already have a draft motion ready. So you can literally read it. I hate to ask this question again. All right, let's get, how many of you have been in a meeting and somebody says, well, I'll make a motion XYZ. And then there's a little discussion and the XYZ kind of morphs into AXY, but nobody's really quite sure. And by the time you get around to the motion, somebody says, well, what's the real motion?
We had that happen and we had to do a second and then we had to redo the motion. Yeah.
So it's really good. If you can prepare your motion, you know what you want to do when you come to a meeting, even on a legislative, well, only on a legislative matter, hopefully. Have a prepared motion. None says you can't write on it, scratch through it, re-edit your own draft, but at least then you'll have something that you very clearly track and read back.
And our, most issues have a staff report in our regular meeting agendas. And it's oftentimes with a proposed motion, just especially if it's, approving, hiring, I don't know, buying something or something.
Okay.
But we didn't always have that, so it's really made the meeting so much more efficient. Yeah.
Yeah. And the motions will explain in the quasi judicial to the applicant and the audience how the decision is made. I move to deny this application because while it meets 1 through 4, it fails to meet standard 5 because of X. And therefore I move to deny. That's pretty clear, very defensive. I think you guys already have a pretty good process for agreement on stuff. How many of you had really complex motions? It's just, well, they do this and this and this and that and this. Break it down into little motions. I move,
They'll do better at that one.
It makes
Doing a lot better already.
Yeah, we are.
It's her job, so just imagine you're in that seat, you have to track it all down and then bring it back to the meeting minutes later on.
And we're really talking more at regular meetings here.
Yes.
We are, when the reports that we get for our quasi judicial are very well constructed.
Good.
And there are, you know, like, so, but our regular meetings, it's a little more amorphous in our
It's
regular
not
meetings.
unusual for us to have to ask for emotions to be read back to us.
Yeah. So we're,
If you can break them into littler pieces. Try to break them into little pieces, makes it a lot easier for Sam, and it'll make it easier on you when you go to approve those minutes at the next meeting.
So I have a question. So, say like, we have had a very complicated motion set up. It is okay to take a bigger motion with a bunch of things in it and break it down into each individual component motion. Say A, B, C, D, E. It doesn't matter how many motions you have or,
As long as you can tie them together,
okay,
so.
And as
motion
long
to-
as they fit within the agenda item.
Yes, I fit within each other.
okay. I wasn't sure for efficiency's sake or verbiage or language, if they needed to be condensed and in one statement. Wasn't clear, so.
If your motion becomes a run-on paragraph,
Right.
and your English grammar teacher from sixth grade would give you like a C or a D, it's time to break it down.
Thank you.
And you can actually make a motion to approve for reasons in the staff report. So if the staff report is accurate and the evidence matches the staff report, you're gonna say, I move for the reasons listed in the staff report. Staff report's public. It's part of it, it's part of the backup, so you don't have to go through all that stuff yet. But how you do that is up to you.
Yeah.
There it is. Popular decision is not always a good decision. Good decision is not always popular. You know, it's your responsibility to protect your community, to position it for success in the future. You know, one of the things, and I haven't talked about this, is your fiduciary duty. As a fiduciary, how many people have seen that, what is it? What's that company? And there's the company, well, I'm a fiduciary. Are you a
Oh, right.
fiduciary?
oh yeah, I know you mean.
Fidelity?
I don't know. I can tell you they only take people with at least 250,000 cash assets. Good you go.
Fisher Investment,
Fisher Investment.
no relation.
No, definitely not.
But what it really means is they have to make decisions based on the best interest of their client. And cannot make a decision based on which sale of a security will get them the biggest commission. In your perspective, it means you have to make decisions that give the town, one, the best bang for its buck, the best future bang for its buck, and the most secure future on all the things that you're responsible for, which are primarily public health and safety. So, which for the most part means your water and wastewater systems. You have to protect them. That's your number one priority. If you focus on that, you're doing good. I'll give you an example of a town that violated its fiscal responsibility report. I'm not gonna name the town this time. They had 5 bank accounts. 2 of the bank accounts were in a bank and these are multi-million-dollar bank accounts. 2 of the accounts were in a bank that was giving about 4.5% interest recently. The other 3 were in a bank that was giving 0.07% interest. The reason was they wanted to do business with a local bank. That violates the fiduciary duty. They have an obligation to get the best return on that money possible. And they were losing hundreds of thousands of dollars income to their residents, passive income, by making that decision. Their responsibility is not to that local bank. And it's not, it's to their overall citizens. All right.
Now, if they had a policy in place for local contracts or local sourcing, would that change that?
Probably not when it's purely a financial issue. I mean, if it said, give them an extra 0.5 point of interest or something like that, if they're close, great. But at 4.5 to 0.07, no. No, if their local policy is that, then their local policy is violating their fiduciary duty. So here's a challenge. Yeah, no, I did this one. Yeah. All right, it becomes clear the board has to deny a project. The applicant feels they haven't been treated fairly and implies she's gonna sue if the project doesn't get passed. What do you do? And these are not perfect answers, the best answers.
Oh, those, is that our multiple choice?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, no, sorry. Well, is A a good choice?
No.
No,
Why not?
It's-
because you're setting her up to fail.
Yeah, you're basically denying without proving. Or proving but at the same time denying. How about B?
B.
Okay, how about C?
No, it's not C.
No,
This should already be clearly defined.
And what happens if your board chair calls the applicant after the night? It's ex parte.
Yeah.
Because it's probably going to appeal or a rehearing or something else, so yeah, it's bad. So now we're talking legal and ethical responsibility. Open meetings. What is an open meeting?
All our business is done in public.
Public has access to the meeting.
Okay. What's a meeting?
More than two board members communicate with each other about a
Well,
specific.
you're careful there, you're gonna say in the same room, right? You just think of the principle, we go back to building trust, right? If somebody hears you're having communications in which the basis for a decision is being communicated and made. Are they gonna trust you more, or they think that's kind of the federal government way of doing things? You know, things sneak behind doors and do stuff and. That's basically it's, you can't have those kind of discussion. It says two or more, or more than two. So can two of you get together and talk about an item on the agenda?
Sure. But not to anyone else.
Well, can one of the two of you go talk to somebody else?
No. Not on that topic.
Part of the serial
That's the-
meeting.
Or it's the serial meeting, so be very careful with that. I think on your emails, there's a little thing on the bottom that says do not reply all.
You know, we highlight that and put it in big capital bold letters at the top of it.
So a clear one is, you know, the town, they gotta get information to you, right? So they send it out to all of you in a single email. The second you hit reply all.
yeah, it's a meeting. I have a question though on this. This came up in our meeting the other day. Where. We were discussing something and at that point I was told, well, the process is. For a trustee, you go and you do this thing and then you bring this thing back and then we talk about it. And that's like a oversimplification. And then the question was, well, am I allowed to tell the other trustees that? It's nothing to do with an item or or like, it's just what the process is for something. So in my reading, I went to CML's website and I looked and I was like, in my reading of this is an FYI. This is how this thing works. It's not about any particular thing that we would be approving or working on. But I'm curious because the mayor thought that that would violate, but like, and I was like, I don't think it does based on my reading of CML's and response.
Just your single email to other board members. I'll use a simpler thing saying, hey, don't forget the Christmas party next Friday night. Would that violate open meeting?
Probably not,
Okay,
because it's not it's not town business,
it's not town business.
but it's a pretty small population of things that, right?
But I guess that's my question, because in my reading of the law is that it's tangential to something that we would be discussing or making a decision on, not a procedure of how things work. So I can't be like, hey, Sheree, I found out this is how this works. Hey, and Lee, I found out that this is how this works.
So. I'm gonna give you the overcautious lawyer who hates to lose lawsuits answer. would your email to Cherie invite a response from Cherie?
I probably wouldn't email, I'd probably just tell her when I saw her. I'm just trying to be as realistic as possible here, because this is like a small town. I see Sheree for coffee and we're like, how does this thing work? I was like, oh, I found out it works this way, but I also told Ann Lee that because we were also like, how does this thing work?
And the best answer, not the only answer, the best answer is whoever told you that's the way it worked, have them tell the town manager to send that information out to everybody.
Which is why I requested an email that would like tell us how we'd all do it, so it's formal. Yeah.
I think
That's the best
it's
practice.
important to think about how it is perceived by the public. They knew that you were having certain meetings. They don't know what it's about. And you can say, well, it was perfectly innocent subject. But the appearance is other than that.
I think though it's challenging though, this is why I'm trying to like really understand how it works, because otherwise I feel like we're end up playing a game of telephone. And about how things actually run, and I'm not talking about decisions, I understand agendas and quasi judicial very clearly, I'm talking about procedure and process. And like when something is happening or when it's not, or how it happens.
Let me add, so you all are, you're new. One
Yeah.
thing Stefan was so good at is if he got an email from one trustee asking a question, he would say, I got this email and here's the question, and he would send it to all the trustees. And that's where he and maybe Sam are the best conduit, like the one you just got about, I'm now the board administrator for Verkada, came from Sam. I wrote it, but she had to send it. So, and that Sam, or that's how Stefan did it. So I would say if you have a question, send it to Stefan, the administrator, and he'll answer it and share it with everyone else.
It is your best answer. Now, could you be sued and win the lawsuit if you just send something that said, oh, this is the process I found out about? You could be sued. Somebody's saying you violated the open meetings law. Might you win? Probably. Do you want to pay an attorney or have the town pay an attorney to do that?
So what happens when there's a gray area and there isn't a clear answer?
Gray area clearance, you go to the city attorney.
Well, you can't go to the city attorney.
You go to-
We have it, only a few people go to the attorney because of, for obvious reasons. But in this case, it's really the administrator who would ask the question of the
What
administrator.
happens when we don't have the administration?
Well, we have a clerk. And they can disseminate the information, because that's who I rely on. Or Ruben has sent out information too, but, yeah. So that, to me, you go to the top of the pyramid and let them set it down.
It's a difficult working environment because of the sunshine laws.
Mhm.
It'd be nice if we could all get together and socialize, but that would look so bad for anybody looking from the outside, like, what are you doing having the town council get together and it's not an open
Yeah,
meeting?
even our tours, when we do the infrastructure, are open meetings. The public's invited, which we're gonna get those scheduled. We're gonna work on those, because that's really important if I see it. So anyway,
Yeah, I don't get central public those, the town I always use as an example, believe it or not, Hinsdale County, little tiny Hinsdale County, got like 700 people in it. Every time there's a chance that two commissioners might be at the same place, they agendize this public meeting.
Can I ask you though then, so what qualifies as an FYI? Because there's an exception in the law for things that qualify as FYI. And CML dictates an FYI as a procedural or process, or hey, this piece of information came out, I'm passing it along and there's no discussion. So in my reading, this particular topic was an FYI. It's like, hey, I found this out, I'm passing it along. No response expected, no discussion expected.
Don't disagree with you one bit. The safer route is to send that to the town administrator and ask for it to be distributed. Because the problem is somebody will do, and if they haven't already done, they'll say, I want all the emails between so and so and so and so.
Right, I get it. I hear what you're saying. I'm also just trying to be realistic because our dear staff are so overwhelmed right now and work wise, and they are really good at responding. I'm not, no criticism, like great, but sometimes it's like it's the day of and there's a meeting time and someone doesn't know the meeting time. I would hate to think that we don't tell each other what time the meeting is because we're concerned about, I see it like a violation of that kind of thing. It creates a weird culture of communication between us when we don't feel like we can pass along basic like FYI information.
I don't want you to be afraid.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about, is that we're in
Yeah.
a situation where everyone's afraid because they don't really know exactly what to tell each other. And if I am like, hey, this thing is at this time, am I suddenly worried that that's gonna like result in a problem? And I just wanna be really clear with all of us, like what we decide to do together and what's kosher for us and what's not. So that we don't have a culture of being like, oh, you shouldn't be telling me that right now. Or
Well,
like,
you can tell me that. You just can't tell Lucy that.
I can't tell Lucy the meeting's at 5 tonight.
No, if anything, to me, you can tell Lucy that the meeting's at 5 tonight, if she asks. But you can't tell me anything that has to do with business. You can tell me, we can talk about business like we did on Tuesday, but you can't then go talk to Lucy.
No, I
Yeah.
get that. I'm saying these are things that are like,
But if somebody's asked you the date, what time's the meeting start, yeah.
that's why I want to clarify this, because there's like, I feel like there's a lot of gray area, and at least for me, there's a lot of like uncertainty among us as a board as to what we can and cannot say to each other about process and procedure and timing and like how things work. And if we have a question about how it works, like, that's just kind of, so I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. I'm just
You
trying to
can
have
ask
it
me.
in the open so we can be clear about it.
You can call, you can ask me. If,
And
and
it's
then,
just
and if
like-
I don't have the answer.
Trustees, I mean, there are times when we come across information that we want to share with the rest of the
You
trustees.
can't. You need to send it
Informally.
to Sam.
So I hear you, Dana, that the most defensible path is through the administrator,
Yes.
period. I hear that 100%. But legally speaking, where is that line between what is information? So not looking at what's best, what's the most defensible, but what is legally permissible for trustees to pass along to multiple trustees?
I'll give you an example. The question was raised, hey, I heard the governor's coming to town. Does anybody know what time he's gonna be here? And it was the last board meeting. Okay, and somebody found out, oh, he's gonna be here at 3. You can send that out. You can say, hey, found out the governor's gonna be here at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, period. Where it gets grayer, I heard the governor's gonna come into town to tout a housing project that's supposed to be coming. Do you know what time he's coming?
So again, legally speaking, if we're just passing on logistical information that has no opinion, no bias, nothing to do with town business, legally, that's permissible.
Yes.
Thank you.
But you gotta be real careful.
Yeah,
Further
we-
clarification on that, town business would be. Hey, how do we do this? Well, I was told we do it this way,
What do you mean, what's this?
whatever it is, it's like, I heard that we should go out and talk to the public, we were talking about this. And ask for expert advice and say, hey, I'm here as a trustee, asking you for your expert advice. Okay, see, but this is what I'm saying, is that I think sometimes there's gray areas.
Yeah, if you think it's gray, don't do it.
Don't do it.
That's my
If what you're saying is, how do we file a travel reimbursement claim? Right?
Yeah.
And somebody finally sent you the instructions. You can send those instructions to other trustees and say, hey, I found out this is the form we used. Period. That's purely ministerial,
Okay.
purely ministerial.
So in this meeting with the mayor the other day, we were talking about how do we solicit expert advice from the public who offers it? And I was told by the clerk, well, you should go as a trustee and ask them about it and bring it back and then share it with the board.
But you should, at an open meeting.
At an open meeting, yes, so no, not in my questions. But I then tell Cherie, if Cherie's like, oh, there's expert advice, I can be like, well, I heard that what we do is we go out and we say, as a trustee, you can meet with that person and then bring the information back and share it with the board.
So is that purely ministerial or you're looking for that expert advice because of something appearing before? the
No,
board?
it's purely ministerial. It's like, it's a process question. It's like,
Okay, so it had nothing to do with the matter before the board.
Well, the
I
expert
think-
advice would be.
yeah, the matter that came up, we've had expert advice offered on a number of different topics. So they are topics that are before the board.
So it starts to get iffy. It starts to get too gray. I would send that to the town administrator.
But again, if you're not talking about the substance of the advice, but just the procedure for obtaining that information, that would be okay.
Right, because I'm not saying, oh, you should go talk to Pete about the cameras. It's saying, I've been told that how we solicit expert advice from the public when they offer it is we go sit down with them, we ask for it, and then we bring it back to the board. That's a process question.
But because it came up in the context of an issue before the board,
But that's like, everything's gonna come up, and we're never gonna know questions before the.
a travel reimbursement, like I said, purely ministerial. How do I fill out a form? It's purely ministerial, it has nothing whatsoever to do with your business. What time the governor's coming to town on something that is nothing, he just happens to be here to go pick cherries or something. Purely ministerial. When it starts to touch on something that's involved in board business where you make legislative decisions, I just step back and send it to the minister, be safe.
So, okay, so here's a question. So on this expert advice topic, I interact with a member of the public. They say, like, I have a recommendation. Can I tell them to send it to the whole board?
Good. That's them communicating with the board.
That'd be totally appropriate, in my
It's like,
understanding,
but that's
right?
not like some weird by proxy thing where I'm, okay, so.
Now, here's the problem you get. They only send it to Lucy and Colin. Colin? Colin, yeah. The person only sent it to you. You don't know who they sent it to.
Right.
Better
She's
say.
not culpable for that.
Right,
No,
but,
she's not
but the
eligible.
point is, if I were to ask or even be perceived as to instruct a member of the public to communicate with the full board, that wouldn't be perceived as,
No.
okay.
I've told members of the public that on many occasions, where it's like, if you can't make it to the meeting, the best way to tell, like, email the board, email us, let us all know.
Yeah.
Now, if you got literally expert advice from somebody,
But yeah, like on
and
a.
you said, would you share that with the board? As a matter of practice, I would make sure at the meeting where that matter came up, you asked the board members, did you get an email from this person? Because if two of them didn't, and three of them did, they've got information, the other two don't. Is you following what I'm saying? The better course of action, rather than telling the person to send it to the whole board, would be send it to the town administrator. And let the town administrator get it back out. That way you know everybody's got the information.
Not to overly complicate things, there's, this is Paonia and it's overly complicated, there's definitely members of the public who have issues with the administrator, and so they do not want to go through the administrator, they want to come directly to the board, and that I think is appropriate.
If I'm sending you an email, you send it to the administrator. Nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with telling them, send an email to the board. The problem is, they may not like Cherie. And then she doesn't get the information.
Nobody likes charades.
So you can't necessarily count on that person who's not part of your government infrastructure really sharing it. So just make sure everybody gets it. Wow. And that was an easy one.
We all talk to each other,
Yeah.
and I think that's the main thing I just wanna have is not have people walking on eggshells with each other. So that our communication is good and nobody feels like someone's doing something wrong that they shouldn't be doing. It's just like, no, we just wanna get to know how it works. I think the challenging thing is you learn things when they come up. And so there are gonna be process questions, and they're not gonna be just relevant to one thing. But they may be provoked by several things that happen at a meeting.
And that's probably the whole reason to send your question to the administrator or to Sanford. So that she can get the question, have it answered, and then disseminate it. It avoids all of you, the issue of you.
Right, which is why I asked Sam and you to send us an email to clarify how
Oh,
all
okay.
of this works, so I don't have to tell people how it works.
Well, you shouldn't be the one to tell. Right.
And Kyle, part of the problem, and I just sense it's not an issue with you. But in the past, there have been board members that don't get along with each other. So somebody would ask a question, get a piece of information and not share it with other people. So that's why, if it's purely ministerial and you can say, nobody would ever question that I'm sending this to Lucy, send it. If you start saying, this is great, don't send it, just send it to town.
What about social media?
Oh, we're getting to that. I think I passed. Okay, maybe that's. We're gonna wait for Andy.
Can I clarify?
Sure.
Just because I know it comes up and we talk about how busy staff is, I don't want you guys to know that, oh, I can let you. Yeah,
Am I running into your 6:30?
yeah. I was just gonna say, that's part of our jobs, so don't hesitate to ask us to help you with something. Think of it.
They earn their money.
Yeah. Oh, I was like, this is, I wish we had a kind of back to, you know.
All right. So open meetings, man, we talked about serial meetings and polling. You can't go from person to person saying, how are you going to vote on something? Obviously. Confidentiality, it mostly comes in when there's like an NDA. So you may have a business or a developer coming to town, and there's an NDA with the town, a non-disclosure agreement. If there is, you better zip it, because that's, cannot talk about that. And the other thing is obviously executive sessions, whatever happens in an executive sessions stays in an executive session. It's problematic when it gets out. Conflict of interest. The simplest conflict of interest, you have a financial outcome or a financial interest in the outcome from that. That's a conflict of interest. You can't make a decision on it, right? Kind of like settling a lawsuit with your son, never mind.
I have a question in that regard.
Okay,
I am an engineer in town,
okay,
so I have a lot of clients in town,
okay,
and a lot of those things will come before the board.
okay. Accuse yourself.
Every single time, if it's a client, regardless of whether,
That would be best practice.
and that's really what I've done. I just, you know, if it ever becomes problematic to where we don't have a quorum, I end up accusing myself of a lot of things.
And you can always state the basis for what you believe is a conflict of interest. Run past your city attorney. town attorney,
Yeah. Town attorney will give her
And
advice.
he'll tell you yea or nay. Fiduciary duty we talked about, keep moving on. Civility, listen as intently as you talk, that old adage, you got 2 ears, 1 mouth, so you can listen more than you talk. Focus on the issues, not the individuals, and not necessarily the pejorative language they may interject and the choice of adjectives they may use in communicating. Distinguish between fact and opinion. Somebody comes up and says, I don't think, I wish, I hope, and that's great, wishes and hopes, and $10 gets you a cup of Starbucks. You deal with facts. I like this one, get curious instead of furious. Nice little adage, find out why, what is it that bothers you? You know, I always get, okay, personal opinions, so I interject myself. One thing I love about this job, I give you the best advice. And if you don't like it, you tell my bosses, oh, he's telling us stuff to do, what we should do. My bosses will be like, hey, good job. And you can't fire me. So it's wonderful. So here's a piece of advice. Yeah. Oh, the cameras. People were upset because it was going to be on the cloud and somebody could see them. That
Potentially.
fundamentally,
Yes.
but if they're in the park, anybody could see them at any time. Take pictures of them. How is that different than somebody just sitting, a security guard?
Are you asking us to
No,
rehash?
no, I don't want you to rehash.
So you don't want to do that.
But in terms of being curious, try to get to the bottom. What is the real thing? And ask questions like that. How is this different than this scenario, which we can't stop? Cannot stop this. How is this different? How is this more security? What would you offer as solution? I always say people bring problems, bring solutions too. Acknowledge knowledge, know that when somebody knows something, commendations to them. Own your intentions, understand why you think a certain way or why you're going to rule a certain way. Common ground, we rule our model, tools for civil engagement. See, I'm pushing my hour and a half now. So these are the obstacles. Moving on after a close vote. It's tough, but you just got to say, I'm a team player, that's the way the team wants to go, that's the direction we're gonna go.
Can I bring something up right out of there, that when you leave a meeting and if you lose a vote, it's really bad form to go out in the public and denigrate the trustee decision in public. It just, you need to stand with the decision. There have been times when that's happened and it's really undermining.
It undermines, it destroys the town.
If you lose a vote, just live with it, yeah.
Healthy conflict resolution, you have copies of this, scenario decisions, just don't do any of that stuff, you guys can talk about it another time. Resources, you have your board bylaws, you have a wonderful now codified code of conduct, awesome. You have municipal code, you have executive leadership council, partners and advocates. CML, huge resource for you. Kudos to those of you who are already signed up, are you on the listserv?
I think so. I
Okay,
got the invitation and everything.
great. You're not in AGNC, you are in Region 10. We're not AGNC. And DOLA, we're actually a good outfit. And codified standards, social media. How many of you have personal social media accounts?
I don't use it.
You don't have a personal social media account anymore. It's public. Anything and everything that appears on there represents the town. It represents your perspective on your job, your attitudes, your biases, your motivations. So be very careful, I think. Hate social media. Anything that appears on social media is going to appear sooner or later on the front page saying, oh, Lucy did this, Cherie did this, Ella did this. Not a good way to go. Immunity Act. Saoirse come talk to you yet about Colorado Immunity Act?
We not here yet.
I'm gonna give you the quick 30-second crash course on the Colorado Immunity Act. You are immune from lawsuits and being held liable as long as what you do is acting as part of your job. An example that's way out of course, is it a part of your job to sexually harass a staff member? No. Is it part of your job to sexually harass a citizen? No. If you were to do any of those, you don't get Governmental Immunity Act. It goes to other things like, is it your job to hire and fire line staff? No. If you interject yourself into those scenarios, you lose immunity. Pay real close attention when Saoirse Sam Light will come and talk to you about the Colorado Immunity Act. Final thoughts, lead with humility and strength, respect everybody else, and the tone starts with you.
Good job.
Well done, Dana.
Thank you very much.
And did everybody get their question?
Yeah, questions now.
Tori, in between topics? Any more questions?
Stay as long as you like. I still have half a soda and I don't have an urge to use the restroom.
Are you ever available to individual trustees if they
Yes.
have questions? So we can reach out to you directly via email?
Yes, I will tell you that I use my discretion because it's always a gray area. You know, what are you going to talk to me about? You're going to talk to me about another board member, the mayor, the town manager, staff. I generally will keep those communications private and confidential. If you want it private and confidential right up front, you need to tell me that. I have done facilitations and mediations between board members and staff and
But because trustees don't have individual access to the town attorney, it's through the mayor or the
I
administrator.
cannot answer attorney questions.
Okay, so we can't come to you and say, is this statutorily okay for a trustee to do? That's not your,
What can we come to you with? We need clarification on
You know,
our position.
about our grants, about your position, you know, how do you think a town might approach this, that, or the other thing? I can give general advice on stuff. If it's something that I think is a concern about board relations, I would go to Paige with it, and even if that means keeping the individual who I spoke with confidential. If it deals with the town manager, if it's something that I feel I can help counsel the town manager on, I may talk to just him, I may talk to him and the mayor. They may not talk to him at all, just say him or her and say, good luck. That happens. That happens. Yes, I am a no.
I have a question. Sometimes I think we're doing so much better, thanks to Paige and many others who've changed the tone of the conversation. But in general, there's still sort of I guess my question is, are there any other towns that you're aware of that have publicly sponsored mediation? So that people can, in those cases, who recommends someone pursue mediation?
CML. CML is your best resource.
And so tell me, because I think in this case, it's like, sometimes there's individuals that are just pretty entrenched in something and they just might need to sit down with a mediator and another person. And that might help. Now, no one's obligated to do that, but if that was an option, how would it be an option?
So you're talking about people in the public.
Both people in the public and the public, between the public and the town, because sometimes it's like, we don't need to go listen to someone just tirade us, but maybe there's an opportunity where facilitated mediation could be helpful for relationships.
Mediation between the public and the government body are difficult.
Okay.
My personal preference is that you involve in a planning process, which includes the public. I don't know, have you done a strategic plan
We have, but it was, gosh,
years ago?
yeah, I mean, it's been since I was mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually, we need to do another one, I think.
A good strategic planning process involves the board.
Yeah.
Senior staff and members of the public. A good facilitator will speak with the board beforehand and find out where the problems are in that communication between the board and the public. A good facilitator will draw that out during the strategic planning process and ensure that those people have their voice heard, but at the same time, bring them kind of to a more grounded place where they realize that some of their positions aren't widely accepted, or maybe they are, maybe they're just misunderstood. But a good facilitator will help do that during a strategic planning session. And the reason I say you do it during a strategic planning session, people like that always want to be at those. They want to direct the future of the town. If you do it as a suggested mediation or something, they're like, that's problem's not with me, it's with the town. They just push it back and hold up a mirror. My suggestion. Other questions? Comments?
Thank you.
That was very nice, a lot of wonderful information. I appreciate your time.
You've got a presentation? Uh-oh, she's taking a picture of my email and phone number.
Oh, well, it'll be.
Turn your phone off.
Thank you for the cupcakes, Paige. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Anybody take something you want to, please.
Can I take one for my whole?
Absolutely.
I get my chocolate covered espresso beans, I can't chew it with gums.
Closing comment I would say is I encourage all the other North Fork towns to do this same thing. View yourself as part of a greater North Fork community. Don't view yourself as just Dalonia. You share common water sources, you share common fire risks, you share common traffic problems, you share common threats of flooding. There's a lot of commonality, and I think and when I say North Fork, I'm talking Cedar Edge, Hotchkiss, Paonia primarily. Each community has incredible strengths. If you work together to build on those strengths, you can actually make each other stronger. As we look towards the future, funding is drying up. The rate at which we have sustained public support of local communities is unsustainable. At the same time, regulatory processes have increased the need for you to have cleaner water, cleaner wastewater discharge. A new wastewater treatment plant will cost you $30 to $40 million. And Hotchkiss, the same thing. And none of you can afford $30, $40 million. Together, if you did a regional concept you potentially could, and you could potentially have something that lasts longer. It's up to you how you do it. But your obligation to the community far exceeds your life expectancy, even the youngest of the group. I'm not sure which is the youngest, but it's gonna be way past you, but look, 60 years down the line, there's trouble coming. And a lot of towns in Colorado are walking dead and they just don't know it.
60 years is generous, I think.
But you gotta look out there. You gotta be really, really visionary. If you wanna make sure your town is still here when your grandchildren, great grandchildren, or somebody else's children are here, so. Okay, I get home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana.
Careful driving.
So you can send them all that.
No, please take them. I do not want to leave them.